Welcome back to Mountain Connections. Utah Pride Center recently announced their new CEO, who is Stacey Jackson Roberts. She is joining us today from Washington, D.C. She will take over soon, but in the meantime, we're looking forward to meeting Stacey. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing very well, and congratulations. I've been learning more about you and everything that you have accomplished during your career. Very much looking forward to having you move here to Utah and take over Utah Pride Center. So I'd love to hear more about your background. You grew up in rural Utah and you plan to take some of those experiences you had growing up here into your leadership position at Utah Pride Center. Tell me more about that.
I did. I grew up in the little town of Beaver. My immediate family now lives in Cache Valley. But yeah, growing up as a closeted trans or queer youth in Utah was quite the experience. And you know, there are really amazing people in Utah, and I think that there's a lot of people with really good hearts. And so I really want to really try to help tap into the community resources that are already in Utah and help support communities and families as they have queer youth that are coming out and needing additional supports. And just really partnering with different organizations throughout the state to build their capacity and our capacity in serving the LGBT community of Utah.
You had a very busy career working for underserved communities. So I enjoy hearing more about your experience, what you have done in Washington, D.C. and beyond as you make this big transition here.
Sure. So most recently, I was the lead therapist for LGBTQ behavioral health at a federally qualified health center in Baltimore, where I built out a line of services dedicated to LGBT healthcare. I was there for basically the past 7 years, and so I really hope to use that to really help build relationships with the Black and Indigenous people of color communities and build out services within them. I've also worked with the various, helped start a nonprofit in DC called Collective Action for Safe Spaces, which works to end sexual assault and sexual harassment on the streets, or for instance, I have the Safe Bars Collective, which is a project to help train bar staff to recognize sexual harassment and intervene and help individuals who may be out just patronizing different establishments and whatnot and try to enjoy an evening, but are receiving harassment and whatnot. So that was an organization I helped start in DC back in the mid to late 2000s. So it's still going strong. It also has a project that works around masculinity and really helping developing healthier forms of masculinity within the community. So there's a lot of different ways that I have engaged in anti-oppression work and building relationships with communities of color and the LGBT community.
As you reflect back on what you have done thus far in your career, when you think about how you have worked with healthcare, with, as I mentioned, underserved communities, and your anti-street harassment things that you've done, how does that make you uniquely qualified to lead Utah Pride Center? And with your background in all of these different areas, how will you bring some of that experience forward?
Well, I think a lot of the diversity of my experience really will add to the leadership position. Having a background in both law and policy, particularly health policy, will help advocate around those issues, but also understand what are the barriers within those policies to really actually helping folks access the care that they need. But then also I went back to graduate school to get my MSW in clinical social work to specifically learn the clinical side of the equation to really kind of bridge the gap between the two. So I've been a therapist for basically, or at least in clinical work, for the past decade. And so I believe that really will help inform how I lead, how I really engage with others and build relationships with them, try to heal some of the challenges that may be within the community. I think that I bring a nice balance of knowing and understanding the culture of Utah and having come from Utah, with also, you know, I haven't been there for the past 20 years, so I have kind of a fresh slate with going in and building relationships across the community and with other organizations where there may be some challenges. So.
And we are excited to have you here. Your background is impressive. Looking forward to having you right here in Utah leading this incredible organization. I know you have some big plans for when you start and for those initial months that you begin the leadership of Utah Pride Center. But before we talk about that, what do you need to do to wrap up your career in DC? What's your timeline with finishing there and coming here?
So I am in the process of winding down my private practice here. So I'm in the process of helping pair patients that are wanting ongoing care with new therapists that may meet their needs. And then just getting my house ready to be sold and whatnot. So my dad just left last night. He spent 8 days here, and we were doing some pretty heavy work on my house to try to get it on the market. But I will be flying back later this week, Friday, and hopefully a permanent resident of Utah. So
it's a busy time, and I mentioned those big plans. Tell me about what you are going to be launching and embarking on as you start here with Utah Pride Center.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm going to be launching a listening tour of Utah. I want to really hear from the community and see where the needs are, what the community wants as far as services and whatnot. I really want to make sure the community have buy-in. Otherwise, I don't think our programming will be as successful in meeting the needs of those communities. And then we'll use that information to really kind of help inform how we advance or alter the current programming that we have. I would really like to explore options around helping support LGBT affirming transitional housing and potentially elder housing, expanding services, particularly around virtual services out into various communities and whatnot, as far as healthcare, particularly behavioral health, expanding those services, and generally just providing a place of support. You know, I think people think of the Pride Center and they think of the annual Pride festivals and parades, which are really important. And there's ongoing work that the Pride Center does that really can support families and LGBT individuals.
Very looking forward to all of these things. I'm impressed that you're going to launch a listening campaign to find out what the people here need, what they want, what they would like to see. It's nice that you're coming here wanting to find out their opinions, and will base your leadership on that, among other things. How can we make this transition easier for you, easier for Utah Pride Center? It's a big change. We're so excited to have you here. So what can we do to help, and how can we follow along with you and get more information about Utah Pride Center?
Well, you know, I think I received tremendous support all the way around, but I would love for folks to really become engaged and support the process. You know, come to the listening tours or join the virtual listening tours. I would love to hear the feedback there. And as people are available, there's always the option of donating. So please go to the website and donate as folks are able to do so.
Well, thank you so much, Stacey Jackson Roberts, for joining us today right here on Park City Television. We appreciate your time with us during this busy moment for you, and excited to have you leading Utah Pride Center here shortly in a few weeks. We'll be back with more right here on Mountain Connections after this.